The Lost Tapes, Volume 1, Session 7 Recap. We open our session high above a bustling city, the streets overcrowded with commoners as the market stalls open for the day's sales. In the distance, we see the large keep of Briarwood breaking up the gorgeous blue, cloudless sky. The camera moves away from the lower, crowded streets onto those with wide, clean alleys found in the upper section of the city, moving from the cobbles to an area of lush greenery, one of the many large estates found on this side of town. We find our focus on a row and row of perfectly trimmed green hedges. We see a large mastiff sniffing along the ground. The mastiff prowls low to the earth, haunches very tense, stopping and listening at every sound. It seems to be looking for something. As we follow along, it's clear the hedges are part of an intricate maze. Suddenly, the mastiff bounds towards a corner of the maze, growling and barking wildly. As it reaches the corner and leaps into the air, we watch as its jaws lock onto what appears to be nothing but air. Then comes a scream, and a young elf appears from nowhere, crying out in pain as the mastiff roughly shakes his now visible forearm back and forth. He collapses to the ground and a loud voice calls out from somewhere out of frame, "Release him, Roscoe!" The large mastiff abruptly releases the elf's forearm and walks away towards the voice, wagging its tail. A tall shadow falls across the body of the elf, still holding his arm in agony.
"You know, I probably should have just let Roscoe tear it off. If the old dog can find you that easily, one would think that you haven't been working hard enough in your lessons. Goodness, he found you in less than an hour, and you were damned invisible."
The elf mutters something between tears. It's hard to make out anything but the words "sent" and "my best."
"What's that? That couldn't have been an excuse I just heard."
The shadow looming over the elf gets darker and smaller as the figure leans in close, right up to the elf's face. With a menacing growl, the figure says,
"Remember, you should be on your knees thanking me, you weeping willow piece of shit. If it were the sons who'd found you, you'd be dead already. I go through all this trouble to train you, to use your gift, and you have the nerve to give me an excuse and cry about it like the fatherless garbage that you are."
The figure turns his head, and we see a strong-looking man in his late 40s, close-cropped dark hair with signs of graying around the ears, and dark-trimmed beard to match. Well-worn crow's feet between thick eyebrows, and dark gray eyes filled only with intensity. He dresses in fine noblery with a cape over his right shoulder, attached with an elaborate silver brooch. The brooch, the mark of an accomplished war captain during the primordial incursion. The cape, however, traditionally supposed to be one of Briarwood blue, is a black velvet instead. The captain looks down at the elf before spinning on his heel and speaking to someone off screen.
"No, there's no need for a healer today. You heard him. It wasn't the young soldier's fault. He clearly doesn't need anything from us."
The camera fades out of focus and comes back in, this time on a small flickering flame. A candle dripping with hot wax. Judging by the amount of oozing into the saucer below, it's been burning for quite some time. The camera slowly zooms out, and we see the flame licking up at a hempen rope, slowly trying to burn through the material. Suddenly, a loud crash rattles the saucer, and the candle sits on, and a flurry of what looks to be snow and ice fills our vision. The candle flickers slightly, yet doesn't go out.
"You're running out of time, you worthless little boy. If you want to eat tonight, you'd best get a move on. Do it again."
As the camera zooms out, we see the rope running through a series of pulleys, then tied around the legs of the same young elf seen previously in the garden. He's hanging upside down, dangling over what looks to be a pit of spikes. He's panting heavily, sweat beading everywhere on his skin. He nervously looks to the spikes below before casting a spell, conjuring a glassy-looking knife, and flings it at the target near the candle. The knife explodes on impact, hitting the outside of the target and creating the same flurry of snow and ice as before. The candle flickers once again, but does not go out.
"You're a pathetic excuse for a caster, you know that? No wonder Daddy ran out on you. Why the gods chose to grant a waste like you any sort of magical ability is beyond my comprehension. If you fail again, it's over, do you understand? I'm not the one about to be impaled. What does it matter to me? It's just a year's my hospitality, generosity, and training, giving you the food off my table and the bedding under my roof. All I ask is for you to do something right.
The elf casts the spell again, hurling the knife at the target. This time hitting dead center. The flurry of snow and ice blows the candle out, and the young elf sighs with relief.
It's about damn time, you pansy-ass pointy ear. Now, all we must do is ask our enemies to give us 89 tries to escape, and we may just be in business. Light the candle. Let us try it again.
The camera loses focus, and when it comes back, we see the young elf running through the same vibrant hedge maze as before, a look of grim determination on his face as he bounds around corners and jumps over obstacles on the ground. Every now and again we hear a whooshing sound flying through the air, and the elf instinctively ducks. He rounds a corner and throws a ball of flame through the air. A bell rings in the distance, and we see the elf grin slightly, pumping his fists in celebration. He turns around, running off back in the direction he came. More whooshes pass by, and we glimpse the source of the noise, as this time, arrows fly past the elf's head. One grazing his shoulder, he stumbles for a moment, but continues running with a grimace on his face. Only a small wound. He turns and hurls 3 more balls of fire down a corridor of the maze. We hear sounds of multiple bells ringing fill the air again as the elf runs away, blood slowly dripping off his wounded shoulder, staining a few blades of grass. He runs through more turns and sprints towards a visible exit. As he clears the final hedge, he goes down to one knee, panting hard, but with a sly smile on his face. The captain, sitting at the exit, awaiting the elf's arrival, rises from his chair and approaches. We hear the voice of Stephen say proudly, "I did it. I cleared them all." "You think you achieved something?" growls the captain. The look on Stephen's face turns to confusion as he glances back at the maze and then back up at the captain. "No trace!" screams the captain as he smashes a cup that he was holding on the ground. "Look at your gimpy little shoulder. You let yourself get hit by an arrow, and that left a trail of blood to follow. Any 2-bit pig fucker with eyes that those bastard sons would call a soldier could see the trail and trace it. We are unseen. I am so tired of your incompetence. No wonder Mommy and Daddy left you here for me to deal with you." The captain turns to a guard standing nearby. "Take him to his room. Don't bother about sending for a healer. Make sure he doesn't eat for the next few days. He needs to remember this lesson." The scene shifts once again. We see Stephen speaking with a frail elderly dwarf in a dark stone corridor. A human woman in gray robes, a tricorn hat, and a brilliant white scarf stands just a few feet away, besides a barred wooden door. We zoom in on the dwarf as he whispers quietly to Stephen.
Remember, you must never use your magic unless it's absolutely necessary. Captain Silvius and his men will be looking for you everywhere. I do not know if they can get beyond the God's Wall, but still, you must exercise extreme caution. Word of a young elf using arcane magic will spread like wildfire. If the captain hears news of you, he'll stop at nothing until he has you back in his clutches. You know.
For a final time, the scene shifts. We see the party standing around the fallen body of an elven man, his long blade clattering to the ground as he falls to his knees. White crackles of arcane lightning still dancing off the fingers of the young elven man who dealt the final blow. Stephen looks to Isabel, dressed in the same robes and white shawl as the scene prior, pain and anger in his voice as he steps over the dead body of Tamir and walks outside. "Are you happy now?" We watch as Stephen reaches the grass to the south of the old farmhouse. Those of you still inside at the time witness the body of the elf begin to convulse, twist, and break in ways no body should. as a horrible mingling of inky black ichor and bloody entrails erupts from within the coiled plate armor of what was once the Bladesinger Tamir, forming a horrific creature with glowing white eyes and a massive snake-like maw. With a horrible roar and a chorus of otherworldly, intelligible chatter, the fight continues, and we fade to blackness. It takes time for our eyes to adjust to this new darkness. The only light we see is that of a small flame, a simple candle, dancing in what appears to be a cold, dark, cavernous space.
Fent, if you could, please just hold that candle a bit closer. Yes, there we are, perfect. Now if you just hold, where was I? Here we go. I could hear the sounds from within the farmhouse, the sounds of battle. I've been getting more and more used to those sounds while traveling north of the God's Wall, but the other sounds, those horrible, mind-breaking sounds emanating from the gelatinous mess of corruption and entrails, I very much was not prepared for that, but honestly, who could be? I was quite pleased to have Fent standing close by. His mind was elsewhere, but I felt safe enough just having him near. Saru tells me the creature had the upper hand for some time, but was eventually taken care of by a combination of well-placed strikes and the newly disclosed arcane magics of the young elven boy. And apparently Saru mocked the thing to death. I swear I'll never understand magic. Arcane magic especially. What kind of pickle have you placed me into, Cornelius? The lad was to carry my books, help an old man along on a dangerous journey. It seems he's well equipped for much more than that, and I'm sure you knew. Truly, it's his mental aptitude I worry about more than anything. He's young, emotional, as we all were at that age, but you see, he ran after the battle was done, alone into the woods, these dangerous woods, full of Bladesingers and dragons and zombie pigs. Too much stress for one lad to deal with all at once, I suppose, but he needs to be more careful. The ranger eventually tracked him down, luckily enough, brought him back to us. Arthur seems to care for him quite a bit. I think they all do to some extent. Anna took to burying the monster that attacked. She believed it wasn't the elven warrior truly doing the fighting, but that demonic corrupting force within that we've seemed to come across time and time again, affecting the Bladesinger's mind in ways we all can't imagine. They did manage to gather a few things off him, though. Some spectacular-looking plate armor that Arthur was cleaning up, and a broken sword, quite long. Anna called it a talir. Isabel believes there was one who escaped the fate of Tamir's blade. There was a bloody trail exiting the house, heading north, as well as, a bloody forearm. Unaccounted for by the corpses inside, I'm to understand. I wasn't going to be much help in there, so I kept my distance. The smell was quite horrible, and from what I could see, it was nearly all painted red, with symbols and entrails. I'm honestly not sure how Clavius managed to spend as much time alone in there as he did. I wanted to vomit just thinking about it. I'm to understand Isabel's quite used to that type of mess, so it did not affect her, but it must be hard on her having to deal with such carnage as regularly as she does. We decided to follow the bloody trail, hoping for answers and to help this unknown fellow missing an arm, in need of medical assistance. I guess we were at least going the same direction, but I was getting quite tired and my feet quite sore. Luckily, I was able to convince Fent to carry a few of my books. Arthur was able to follow the trail easily enough for a few hours north, where we reached the river just as the sun was setting over the horizon. The bridge had seen better days and was in quite a sorry state, I must say. But what was worse was what greeted us. More surprises from the abyss. A corpse slain by a short sword wound to the chest, laid still in the center of the bridge. I'm told it was a dretch, a lower demon of some kind. If I spent more time reading about monsters than I did maps, maybe I'd be a bit more help to these people. I'm a bit confused as to what happened next. You see, once we reached the center portion of the bridge, Fent couldn't really help himself. The raging water was truly the greatest fishing spot we've seen all trip. So, of course, he cast out a line, and that's when I heard a bit of commotion behind us. It looked as though Saru had took it upon himself to rappel from the bridge towards the rocks below, enlisting the help of Clavius, I suppose. I was quite in shock by the whole visual. I mean, the last time we were around water, Saru seemed a bit squeamish at the thought of just getting his fur wet, and now there he was hanging over the river like some kind of tabaxi pinata. I'll never quite understand the catfolk. He's lucky Clavius had his wits about to bear his weight in such a quick instance of curiosity. Odd, anyway. It did, however, seem to pay off, for it was he who spotted the other dretches digging around the rocks below the bridge. Now, as I've said, this party, I've seen them in action a few times now, but something happened in this moment that truly made me fear for all of our future enemies. They acted quickly and precisely. Arrows, flails, harsh words, explosive gunshots, and arcane magic filled the air for what was a mere 30 seconds or so, and the oncoming threat was dealt with. All the dretches slain before they could get within an arm's reach. I don't even think Xerxes had to reload his handbanger one time. It all happened so quickly. Isabel had no work to do after the battle was over. No one took a scratch. Well, no one, of course, but Anna. I'm not sure I'll ever get used to seeing her do that to herself. After that encounter, it took some time for Arthur to pick up the trail on the other side of the bridge. It seemed to have just vanished into thin air, much like Stephen had hours before. That was until Anna realized that the elusive one-armed target may have fallen into the river when fighting off some of these dretches, and left a new trail, one of fresh blood from a newly opened wound, it seemed, into a hidden cave amongst the rocks beneath the bridge. And, of course, midnight approaching, they decided to enter the cave. And against my better judgment, I followed them inside to find what appears to be a labyrinth of cold, dark tunnels, with who knows what waiting for us around the next bend. Fent and I are on rear guard, currently, as Arthur likes to say. Just waiting in the darkness. Fent, did you... I can hear something. Do you hear that? I think they're coming back. Hurry over to the rope. We can help them. Oh, hello. Greetings, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Are you all here? Has everyone returned? 4, 5.
We watch as Fent and Borsiel begin to help the party up the rope as the scene fades to black, and The Lost Tapes, Volume 1, comes to a close.